What is up, and welcome back to another episode of So There's That. I am your hostess, doing the mostest, Kivanshi, and we are here on our season one watch of the Gilded Age. Now, you may notice that I didn't say rewatch. It's because I watched all of season three without ever watching season one or season two. And y'all was in my comments, not only on YouTube, but whenever I was doing like the reaction pictures on TikTok, everybody was on my head. Sis, you need to watch season one. Cousin, you need to watch season one. Am I actually related to the people that was hounding me? Absolutely not. But I appreciate the family that I found in the Gilded Age audience. So because of y'all, I am doing something that I would have never done otherwise. I did not know how hungry Black people would be for Black podcasters to talk about this show. This was just like a show that was coming on HBO. I was really excited to see somebody that I admire be on the season, and then learning through her like the rest of the Black women that were going to be in the series. I did not know what it would do for me. I didn't know what it would do for my channel and my podcast. I didn't know what it would do for the audience. And I'm just really excited that we all kind of like gathered around. And so, as promised, we are here. It may be a rewatch for a lot of y'all, but I've never seen any of this. And so, it's definitely going to be really interesting to see how, like, season three informs how I watch season one and season two. But I am suffering from Sunday withdrawals from the Gilded Age. And so this just made so much sense with my schedule. It made so much sense with the podcast, to just kind of go on this thing, and hopefully, the same people or new people can still be in the comments and just inform me of some things that I may have missed. Because y'all have been like super respectful, super helpful, and like helping me fill in some of the gaps. But now we are traveling back to 1882. Okay, we are traveling back with season one, episode one, titled Un momento. Titled Never the New. Now, first off, it was an hour and 20 minutes. Listen, as an average viewer, I remember being like, oh my God, I need these shows to be like an hour long. Like, oh my God, I can't get enough. As somebody who reviews and recaps at this point as like a full-blown second career. Anyways, y'all already know the cast. I'm not going to repeat everything, but the director of this episode was Michael Engler, and the director of photography was Vanja Cernjul. I hope that I pronounced that correctly. So we're just gonna dive in. I do have some notes of certain things that I want to talk about, and then I have like thoughts and like certain notes on that. But the framework of this episode really drops you right into a transitional phase for everybody. So I probably won't rely heavily on my notes. So if I miss something, it's probably likely intentional, because of the way that this episode was structured. Now, understanding that everybody thought like, oh my God, like this is such a great low stakes show. I definitely get it, because the biggest like thing in this episode is Bertha wants some friends. Bertha is a new girl in town. The Russells have moved across the street from Ada and Agnes. Marianne just moved in. And we're hearing the whisperings of like, oh, Lena's not gonna accept this. Mrs. Astor, she runs society. And Bertha's like, listen, y'all, we are the new kids on the block. My man is running these railroads. I got two beautiful kids, and we are moving on up to the east side. And the biggest thing was she gets her feelings hurt because ain't nobody signing up on her. Douglas, you were doing nothing before I started, and now you want to chew on that? Can you like relax? Gracias, mi amor. So that's like the biggest thing. And when you look at like the ending of season three, and the biggest thing is George and Bertha still gonna be married, it's like, okay, I see what y'all mean and why you would fall in love with something that's like low-key, like not stressful at all. But A lot of the little nuggets in the transitional phase is what really like locked on for me. Like when you think about a train, right? And you think about just the word transportation, it's really about getting you from like one place to another. You're going through a transitional phase, a state of change. And I love that we are talking about like the railroads in this episode because it's a metaphor to all of the change that is happening across. You have George being ruthless and ambitious and putting people out of business because they're not basically falling in line with what he wants to do. You got the Russells moving into the house, and not only them moving being a state of change, but even using new builders, right? They're going against the grain of old New York. Marion's father, Henry, died, and so she's moving in with her aunts. And even though Agnes is like, listen, you come from old money, so don't ever try to align yourself with the newness. Marion is not aligned with whatever the hell Agnes got going on. And so you got her whole life changing in that moment. And then even Aurora speaking with Ada and Agnes, like, y'all may not like what the Russells are bringing, but we need their money because we are going broke, yo. Like, so I just love like the metaphorical framework surrounding like the railroad and what change actually means to this episode. Now, getting into specific relationships, a big thing that you see that you don't really know like too much of the origin is Agnes versus the Russells. Off rip, she's like, we not going to none of their parties. We're not talking to them. They just gonna be the people across the street that we peep into. And old money versus the new. The new ain't got no place up in here. And one of the lines that she ends up mentioning is talking about when Ada was saying how she really likes Marion because Marion is a go-getter and you know she's a revolutionary. And Agnes is like, yeah, well, those type of people always bring about something that's like unwanted. And it's really just the fear of being pushed out. And even George's advisor says the same thing to Bertha and George when nobody showed up to her party. And it's just like, they fear that new means that there is no place in society for them any longer. And just the beauty of the way that this show just captures the 1800 problems and how it mirrors the problems of today. You're looking at a group of people who were not born during a millennia, but a new millennia, a new territory is kind of coming up on them. And so they are embedded in their changes. I mean, embedded in their ways. So like think of like boomers, right? They are like deep seated and rooted in this is how it's always been. Don't give me nothing else. And then you have Gen X that's like, I could dibble and dabble. I see the benefit of moving forward while trying to maintain the traditional ways. And then you got Marion, Gladys, Larry, Peggy, and all of the millennials being like, listen, there's a birth of something new, and I want to be a part of that. So just in this first episode, I love how you don't really know all of what's going on and you don't know everything that's informing these characters. You're just dropped in the middle of great change during a time where people were stressed. You got good stress, you got bad stress, you have anxiety of being on the cutting edge of something incredible and something that you've never seen, and then the anxiety of being on the cutting edge of something that you've never seen and dreading it and fighting it tooth and nail. In this, I was very surprised to see Mrs. Winterton at her Miss Turner phase, and she is Bertha's help. Supreme hater. Like, there are only two other hater supremes that I cannot stand in the history of TV. Squidward and Brian Griffin. Seeing Miss Turner in this episode and really just being an open op, I'm just like, wow. Wow. Bertha need to hold this grudge from the ends on out. I don't care who she married. Don't care that her man died. Don't care that Oscar has forged some type of agreement or relationship with her. Like, she is a hater supreme. And Bertha needs to keep her woo at arm's length. Like, not me over here coughing. Y'all know what a cough in the 1800s is. But no, can't stand her. And you can really just tell, like, she wants Bertha's life. And it's not lost on me that she is very similar to Bertha in personality, in looks, in build. I'm very interested to see how she went from Miss Turner to Miss Winterton and the dynamic that they have in that, because the one thing that stood out to me in this episode, not knowing who she was at all in season 3, is she wants to be Bertha, but she wants to be Bertha without the work and the grind that Bertha does. It seems like she's the type of person that if something happened to Bertha, she'll just pick right in, take the fortune, and pretend that she forged the path all her own, in spite of, like, it's just, she's definitely given Scar from The Lion King. Like, not even gonna hold you. But something very beautiful from the start is Peggy and Marion's friendship, as well as Agnes's fondness of Peggy. Like, just coming out the gate and knowing what life was like and the differences that were there with Black Americans and white America, and their family still being like, oh my God, old money and no new New Yorkers, be so open and welcoming in spite of all of their racist, bigoted, and prejudiced counterparts, friends, family, and everybody else in society. So I'm loving that the introduction of Peggy is not rooted in ostracizing and not rooted in micro macro aggressions or anything like that. She's accepted as an intellectual. She's accepted as a kind person who helped Marianne get there. If anything, Agnes beef with Marianne because they can't stand her dead daddy stands out more than anything that's going on with Peggy. But I thought it was great insight with the conversation with Ada and Marianne on why Agnes is the way that she is, even when I met her. And knowing that Henry stole all of the inheritance to the point where she was forced to marry an abuser. I get it. Like, I get season 3 Agnes so much just from this episode. And the framework of this episode really tells you a lot about the characters without ever having to go into any of the backstory. You got enough to know what people's dominant personality would be, and to see, like, the way society is about to behave with the Russells coming in basically as the disruptors. Like, they're innovative, they are disruptors of society, and they're scaring the absolute shit out of everybody else that surrounds them. And the beautiful thing in this episode, which put the end of the pilot against the end of season 3, y'all know I love quotes. Bertha is crying, and George is there, and he says, I hope you won't give up. And she's crying, but she says, I'll make them sorry one day. Throughout this episode, George has mentioned more than once how Bertha's, like, just persistence and tenacity and her drive and her ambition also contributes to his success in the railroad business. It contributes to the house that they're able to build right now on 61st Street, launching themselves into the middle of society. And then you put that side by side with him telling her that her ambition is the reason that their family is falling apart. I was just like, Bruh, did you forget where your bread was buttered? You did. And even though season 3 is not the end of the Gilded Age, those two moments side by side where you see that their ambition was the strength and the core of their relationship, to George positioning their ambition as the nucleus to their problems of their relationship, I was not prepared for how that was about to hit. And it hit so hard. Like, it hit crazy. But even in this episode, it's such a large ensemble cast, but everybody that you were supposed to see and everybody that I know of in season 3 were seen in this episode. And even Lena in the pilot episode versus Lena showing up to the ball, like, oh my god, let's talk about it. Okay, in this episode, it's Mrs. Astor, Mrs. Astor, Mrs. Astor. You don't see Mrs. Astor until the very end when her daughter comes home and she burns Bertha's invitation in the mail. To the end of season 3, where Bertha is now doing the end of season ball and Lena is there showing her support. But it still was very much like, is Mrs. Astor coming? Is Mrs. Astor coming? Is Mrs. Astor coming? So whereas in season 1, episode 1, everybody's asking that same thing and she doesn't come. Season 3, episode 8, everybody's asking the same thing and she rolled up in there like a boss bitch. And the introduction of who she is as the head of society in season 1, episode 1, and in season 3, episode 8 is so beautifully paralleled. Like, run those scenes side by side. Donna Murphy, you are a queen. They are positioning this character in such a way that is so cinematically beautiful in the way that it drives the narrative between the relationship of Mrs. Astor and Bertha is insane. They are more alike than they are acknowledging and giving credit to each other. And me watching this now and having the fresh memory of the finale and just kind of like internalizing both of those things side by side, it's like, Bertha, your future self ultimately is so proud of you that it's insane. Unfortunately, at the height of your success in season 1, episode 1, you ended on sadness. And at the height of your success in society in season 3, episode 8, you still ended on sadness. And now I'm just like, I see why y'all on Bertha's side, because I got a feeling I'm about to be team Bertha Russell. Because when I met her, I'm like, damn, girl, what's up? And I know she's still gonna get on my nerves because when we're talking about Gladys and all these other things, Bertha says in season 1, episode 1 about Gladys, she's a child until I say. And so she's already trying to control at the beginning. Like, y'all's house ain't even all the way built. People are still moving in. And you're already looking at how you're going to throw and parade Gladys into society. Even the way that she introduces her when they all go meet for the first time, like, it was just very much like, I'm playing chess. My children don't have any voices. So, like, this is what we're here for. This is what we came to do. And I would say if Mrs. Astor, or even if the Van Ryns and the Brooks, more than Aurora and Marion sneaking over to go to her like housewarming, I don't think Bertha would have moved as hard and as fast as she did with Gladys. But ending this episode and being so upset by it, and George even fueling his own wife, like, don't give up. And she's like, they will be sorry. Like, the moment that happened, she really was like, internalizing the whole Bible verse of making your enemy into your footstool. And unfortunately, a couple of steps on that footstool was Gladys and Gladys's happiness. But now I get to see like where this energy was born. And I also see that George was the fan that stoked the flames within Bertha. And so to know that this is the very thing he loved about her is a thing that is he's using as a tool to drive them apart, really like pisses me off even more. Especially because in this episode, George is looking at this man and is just like, yeah, so since you didn't want to play ball with me, I'm going to run my railroad right alongside of yours. And the dude's like, that's going to run us out of business. And he's like, whatever, that's just, what do they call them? It's just a casualty of business, bro. It's just a casualty. And so it's like the callousness and the ruthlessness of your behaviors. Sir, this is foreplay for you. Like, what are we doing, young George? What are we doing? But you know what they say, hindsight. Well, I'm the one with the hindsight. The characters ain't got none. But what a beautiful pilot episode. Hour and 20 minutes. Y'all almost lost me. I'm not even gonna hold you. But I loved it. So there's that. Season 1, episode 1 of The Gilded Age, titled Never the New. My overall thoughts is like, oh my God, there were so many things in this episode. Maybe that's why I'm like, it was an hour and 20 minutes. There were so many things. Okay, first off, the outfits. Praise Jesus. The costumes have grown with the times because my God, I swear it was like Peter Pan threw up in New York. And it's not to say that the costume designer didn't do their job in that, but it's also really showing you like, 1, budget, 2, fashion, right? So it's like looking at the fashion in the jewelry of season 3 and then going back and watching season 1 is just like, it's kind of like visiting elementary school all over again. Like when you were in elementary school, the hallways were large, everything was so big and it was so grand and it was so bright. And then you go visit your elementary school after, you're in your 20s or something. And it's like, it's small, it's old, it's dull. Like, it actually wasn't like all of that. That's basically what it looks like. White women not working. I loved the conversation between Peggy and Marion because Marion so desperately wants something to do. And Peggy's like, well, they're not going to allow you to get a job. The most that they're going to have you do is charity work. And when you really look at a lot of these rich white women who ain't got no fucking job, and they be like, oh, well, we donate to this charity, we donate to that charity as a means to make themselves useful, to prop up any type of white savior complex and to make it seem like they're doing good in the world. And then you see that in this, even the way that Peggy told her, it's like society doesn't prop it up for a white woman to ever do any work. And yet, white women are getting published books. And Peggy says, but don't worry, I have a couple of precedents. I have a couple of precedents. And because she wants to publish her book, and she's having this conversation with Marion. And in this, it's like, I have to work in order to get prestige in this country. And yet, I don't even have a lot of people to set that example for me. You ain't got to work. And society won't even let you. And yet, there are more published white women authors than Black. But you don't have to. And so, in that, you really understand Peggy's drive and her focus and the framework of Black feminism and white feminism and the framework of interracial friendships. A lot of people like to focus on interracial relationships, but interracial friendships I would say requires a lot more conversation and a lot more a microscopic view of what that is, because you have two people who want to root for each other, who want to take care of each other, but society puts things and constructs in place that will always keep them separate on a fundamental level. And in the first episode, you see that with Marion and you see that with Peggy, even without being informed by their relationships later on in season 3. It's still very much telling you that while Marion is complaining of not wanting to stay in the house with her aunts because they have opposing views, she doesn't agree with the old versus the new. She don't know why she can't go across the street and hang out with the kids her age, and why she got to be up in this fucking house with two old ass biddies and a closeted man. Peggy's like, you are still being handed a fortune. You are still being handed a family. You are being handed a life in which you have to do nothing. Meanwhile, Peggy is clearly at odds with her father based on the conversation that she's having with her mom. And you can see that there is a struggle there. Peggy is the reason Marion was able to afford going out here to New York. And yet she still got a ride in the back. You are here and afforded this opportunity that she is not. And yet you complain in the face of the person who has less than you by design. Really, really love that. And knowing that they are still very much close friends and confidants with each other makes me want to really dive deep into the ways in which their friendship is going to be tested. Um, because it's just one of them things that if they don't call a spade, it will never work. Knowing the friendship that they have in season 3, I'm hoping that this comes out in season 1 and or season 2, because Marion must acknowledge that she is already ahead of Peggy by design. She has to. In order for this friendship to work, in order for the friendship to be authentic, she has to say out loud to herself and to Peggy, no matter what, I will always be ahead of you. She has to acknowledge that in order to understand and truly see why Peggy is driven to do the things that she does, and why it's important to Peggy, not only as a woman, but as a Black woman in society, especially as a Black woman who clearly comes from money in society as well. So that's my favorite part of this entire first episode, is like that conversation and what that looks like, and how broad and how deep and surface you can go with not just Black high society versus white high society, but just Black and white friendship, and how that can move and drive the narrative forward, going from the old into the new. And with that, kiddos, that is going to wrap up this episode. Thank y'all so much for being so enthusiastic. That ended up getting me enthusiastic to go back in time and watch this. Like I said, the Gilded Age is still going to be here on this Sunday. Hopefully they are already starting production and breaking ground on season 4. But in the meantime, we are going to be here still every Sunday, dropping it 8. Let me put it on Eastern Standard Time, since that's what everybody wants to talk about. It'll still be dropped on my podcast at 10/9 Central every Sunday. We're just gonna keep that same time with the Gilded Age anyway. So like the Gilded Age comes on HBO Max 9/8 Central on Sundays. I assume they're gonna keep that as a drop. And if you've already been watching my previous recaps on the Gilded Age, you know that I was dropping it immediately after it aired on HBO Max, which ended up being 10/9 Central. It's really the only show that I think had well, it just depends. If a show gives me a specific, the network is like, do not drop anything before this time, then that's when I drop it. So for y'all, the Gilded Age is going to be dropped every Sunday with my recap from season 1 through season 2 every Sunday, 10, 9 Central here on the podcast. And if you're listening to it on Spotify, it'll be dropping on Spotify and Apple Podcasts at the same time. As always, like, share, subscribe, hit that notification bell, leave comments in the comments box below. If you got people that only want to listen, again, Spotify and Apple, your girl is there. You can also find me on Instagram at So There's That Podcast, where I talk about film and TV news and updates. You can find me on TikTok, where I do reviews on shows and movies that I do not cover on the podcast. And you can find me on Twitter, where I'm talking my shit all the time about so many shows, books, TV shows, adaptations, whatever, at Kevon She. And with that, I will catch y'all in the next podcast episode.